This is the Waupaca School District Board of Education meeting.
Okay, it's 5:16, so I'll call the meeting to order. Actually, before that, President's comments as usual. My thanks to everyone for joining us. With special recognition to, after 2 meetings, Ella has chosen to come back to yet another meeting as our student representative. With that, if you'll join me in the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. With that, I'll call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Steve Hackett.
Aye.
Betty Mannion.
Yes.
Pat Fair.
Here.
Mark Kolbinski.
Here.
Sandy Robinson.
Here.
Dale Feld.
Here.
Steve Johnson.
Here. With that, I'll look for a motion on the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion by Mr. Feld. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by, I believe Sandy was the next one in. With that, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Public comment. I did not receive any emails for comment to the board. Mr. Sari, did you?
I did not.
Okay. Anyone that's streaming in that has access, was there any comment? You can make note in the chat. Okay, we'll move on then. Review the norms. I will begin with be prepared, stay informed, listen to others, and be open to differing opinions and perspectives. Be inquisitive, reflective, and respectful. Checking our biases and agendas at the door. We will thoughtfully and objectively discuss the facts of the situation and not personalize issues or policies. Mr. Feld?
Number 2, ensure open and clear communications and maintain transparency. No surprises.
Betty?
Remain objective, forward-thinking, and open-minded. Respect the opinions of others.
Pat?
Maintaining professional relationships is key. Know and respect the roles and responsibilities of the board, which is governance, administration, tactical, and staff operational.
Okay, thank you. Mark, number 5.
Start on time, end on time, and stay on task.
Sandy, number 6.
When a board decision is made, we accept and abide by the decisions both publicly and privately. We accomplish more united than divided.
And Steve Hackett, number 7.
Honor and protect the expectations of confidentiality of all topics addressed and discussions held in closed session.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll start with the minutes for approval. First was the January 12th regular board meeting. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
Betty Mannion, second by Steve Hackett. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next would be the January 25th special board meeting. Is
I
there a
would
motion?
move approval.
Second, Fair.
Robinson, second by, was that Pat Fair?
It was.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. And then the February 5th, 2021 special board meeting. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Dale, second by Steve Hackett. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to communications. Mr. Sari?
A few special communications going on here. The first is, it is School Bus Driver Appreciation Week this week, February 8th through the 12th. National FFA Week is next week, or the week after next, February 20th through the 27th. February is Career and Tech Education Month. National School Breakfast Program Week is March 8th through the 12th. And then we also have a donation from the Waupaca Mobile Travel Center at the WLC. And this is an action item for the board to approve.
Okay, is there a motion?
I move that we accept the very generous donation with gratitude from the Mobile Tower Center.
Second?
Is there a second?
Yes, second.
Second by Sandy Robinson. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you very much. And as Betty said, with gratitude. The 2020 giving season report.
You know, Lori and I haven't really spoke. Lori, did you want to cover this, or do you want me to? I can do it too.
I don't know if it needs to be fully covered by the board, Mr. Sari, or, fully covered in detail, but it is the annual report from our social workers for our season of giving. And I know that has been an item that our school board has enjoyed reviewing each year on how generous our staff and community are for our families. So that is the main gist of that report in terms of what was provided for our families each year.
Okay, thank you. And with that, we can move on to the district administrator's report.
Okay. I have 6 items to share today with the board. As you're aware, our transition plan to increasing levels of in-person learning is in progress. On January 19th, we had phase 1, where we added an additional couple hundred of students to the high school. On Monday, February 1st of last week, we added the 7th grade to the middle school and the 9th and 12th graders to the high school. And we're pleased to report that everything is going very well. Of course, we expected student excitement to be like the first day of school, and it was. At the same time, overall staff and students are doing good. The COVID data continues to be favorable for us, with decreasing numbers across the county and inside the district. I'm just very, very pleased right now in regards to that data. In January, we had 3 days with 0 positives in our cohort of 2,445 students and staff. This includes 2 days in a row, January 19th and 20th, with 0 in that cohort. That's the first time all school year that we had 2 days in a row with 0 in the cohort. Today is the 5th time this school year where we were at a 0 in our cohort. There was only one other day this school year where we had a 0, and it was October 2nd. At the end of last week, our county data is showing that we're at a place where we were at the start of the school year in September. Last week, we had 166 total positives over 14 days. The 14-day average was 11.8, and across the county, the active positives was 127. Yesterday, our total positive 14-day count was 132. We had an average 14-day average of 9.4. Today, our total 14-day count is 112, and the 14-day average is 8. We haven't had a 14-day average of 8 or less since July 24th. So that was pretty exciting today. Our active positives in the county today is 97. And again, we haven't experienced active positives below 100 since mid-September. We've experienced daily new positive cases in the single digits 8 of the last 10 days, and that hasn't happened since early September either. Internal data is trending in the right direction as well. We're averaging 1.4 to 2.4 classroom teachers out with COVID reasons on a daily basis. At our peak, we were averaging up to 12 classroom teachers per day. So both days this week so far, we experienced 0 classroom teachers out for a COVID reason. Every day since Christmas break, we have more classroom teachers out for a non-COVID related reason than for a COVID reason. And that has not occurred since September as well. We're averaging between 1 and 2.5 internal classroom coverages per day. Previously, the average was as high as 10.5 internal classroom coverages in a day. The last 3 school days, including today, we had 0 internal classroom coverages. That's the lowest daily average for internal classroom coverage that we've had all school year. The average number of students and staff quarantined at any given day has also decreased to the lowest number since the start of the year, averaging between 2.8 to 4.8 total staff quarantine on any given day. Students quarantined per day average around 64 since Christmas break, compared to where they were earlier in the school year, where we had 100 to 200 on a given day. The last 3 school days, we're averaging 25 students quarantined per day, which is the best that we've had. If the data continues to go in this direction, we're going to continue moving with our phase 3. Tomorrow is the day where we meet with the county health department and our county superintendents, where that decision is made. At this point, I'm very optimistic, obviously. Phase 3, as you know, means that on Tuesday, the 16th of February, we'll be bringing back our 8th graders to the middle school, and then our sophomores and juniors at the high school for that 4-day per week in-person learning. A little update regarding the vocal and music. As you're aware, the 7th through 12th grade vocal was approved prior to Christmas break to begin choral practice using the surgical masks in the larger areas with increased spacing. At the end of January, the middle and high school were permitted to play band instruments indoors under the following 4 guidelines. Only 1 person in the room and the door shut. Signs posted on the door while playing and singing is in progress and for 20 minutes after. And to the best of our ability, no one else will enter the room for a minimum of 20 minutes after the playing and singing has been completed. And of course, the fogging of rooms between occupants is taking place as well. A little update on our grant writer position. Linked in here, and I'm not going to go through it, but linked in here is the report that you can check at your leisure. The bottom line is, for what pertains to us right now, there are 2 grants in the works. We've talked a little bit before about the mental health program requesting $48,000 to contract with Giggle Therapy, the teletherapy sessions for students. Also, the broadband expansion grant that Josh Werner is working with Greg on, $42,139 to develop a new broadband towers in our county. So far, Greg has written 5 grants for the months of December and January, with a total requested of over $330,000 in grants. Year to date, Greg has been awarded over $86,000 in grants, 3 different grants that were approved. Greg is having a high level of success beyond our expectations for only 5 months of work. We're all aware of Mr. Neville's request to include in Greg's agreement a 3% increase or a 3% incentive for everything awarded over $100,000. Greg approached us, myself and Aaron and Terry, and stated that he's very close to that $100,000 threshold and very likely will end up with over $1 million in total requested grants by September of 21. And he also understands that we can't afford a $30,000 bonus for writing over $1 million in awards if we were so fortunate to get that. He also shared that his professional grant writer organization that he joined frowns on incentives as a violation of their ethical protocols. And so in exchange, Greg requested that we be more flexible with his time. So this means that Greg will keep regular office hours at the chamber 3 days a week for 4 hours each of those days, and he'll work from home the rest of the time, maintaining availability between 8 and 4 with 30 scheduled hours per week and an additional 5 floating hours each week for evening meetings that are scheduled outside of his regular working hours. His goal is to continue providing high quality results, which he is doing, and to continue to exceed expectations. Those are his words. And if the quality of work slips, we'll revisit this schedule. Greg is really looking for increased work-life balance, and we agreed to his request and have total confidence that he's going to continue to produce the results he's currently producing. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I do want to hit that WASB convention. As you know, in my report, there's various links, and one of them includes the sessions page. That's our landing page, that WSB 2021 sessions page that's linked, where all of our notes are in. If you click on that, Mark, it'll pop up everybody's notes that sent them to me. You can see on that first page there, Polo has his all linked in there. We have those who sent us the sessions that they attended, those are there. Anyway, that's those two, and I just wanted to hit two of them, Mark. So if you could hit the Howard Swamico, that's the school board linkage one, expanding your vision. If that one could pop up quick. And I'm just going to kind of share just these two because there's something that I think food for thought down the road for you to just kind of look at it a little bit more closely. So the Howard Swamico School District has these 8, they call them linkage meetings, which are basically stakeholder type of engagement meetings that they have. And they've labeled them here, civic community groups and other active older adults. They talk about who they're focusing on, what the board awareness level is for each of them. And I thought that was interesting, something that possibly the board may want to discuss at a future time. The other link is from the Elmbrook School District. The session was Proven Tactics to Increase Community Engagement. And looking at this one, it's similar to the Howard Swamico, a little different. They had 5 stakeholder groups, and then they kind of listed them out and talked about some of those activities that they use to engage each of those groups. Student engagement, they had staff engagement. And one that I found interesting, that they had a board member engagement group as well, which included a 2-hour sessions, work sessions monthly, and a family engagement and some community ones as well. So going back to the agenda, I put in here something that I found interesting, and I thought maybe the board would as well. John Ashley, the executive director of WASB, jumped on a CESA meeting that had over 270 superintendents from across the state on Friday of last week. And he asked us 2 questions because WASB is going through a strategic planning process. And the first was, this year's state ed convention was held virtually. If your board attended, how would you describe their experience? And 43% shared a very positive experience. I thought, based on the feedback that you folks have shared with me, that you felt it was a pretty positive experience overall. That was the highest responding group. The other was, how did the change from an in-person to a virtual conference affect your board's attendance? And I stated the first of, there was no change in the expected attendance of my board, 31%. But as you can expect, and it wasn't anticipated, 51% felt that they had less participation. John Ashley stated that very likely they'll continue to have recorded sessions or recording their sessions, so board members that are in attendance can watch more than the sessions that they're attending at their leisure time. I told you during the superintendent evaluation report, that self-eval that I did, that the strategic plan and moving forward was something that I wanted to do. Last week, the core team met with Dennis Polly, our consultant, our facilitator, and kind of regrounded ourselves and where we were at when we kind of left that work as we were in survival mode here with school beginning and wanting to focus on teaching and learning. And so then we put together the strategic plan timeline that's in the report. We started today meeting as a core team and reviewing the strategic plan language that we have. Next week, what we're going to do is we're going to mock up a district scorecard, as you can see in parentheses, in very light pencil, because it'll be just a starting jumping off point for the next week when we meet with the principals to finalize what that scorecard will look like, and it will provide our buildings with input and opportunity to put some thought into how they want their individual building scorecards to look. Then what we're looking for here is on March 4th. Dennis can make it work on March 4th, and I believe the admin team can. I'm hoping that the board can as well, to come back and have our strategic planning team get back together. So it'll be all of those stakeholders, the board, everybody that was in all of those previous meetings that we had throughout the summer and into the fall, to come back together, remember what we were doing, and go back over that whole process and where we're at. Then the plan is the week of April 26th to draft the draft of the building scorecards to get shared with the core team. And then the week of May 24th to have those final scorecards shared out publicly with staff, so that before staff leave for the summer, they know what we're focused on and what we're going to be the main part of our work for the upcoming year and years. And the last piece is we had a little bit of a conversation at one of our last meetings about Aspen Group and coherent governance, and I did follow up with Guy Levitt, the WSB consultant, and he informed me, as we thought, that they are not, they don't do the policy governance work. During my conversations with the Aspen Group, they did recommend that we do a reset with our governance policies and start from scratch. And part of that reason is we only have one of our board members who was participating when we incorporated policy governance into the work here of the district. And they noted that there needs to be updates. They felt that we need to have lots of conversations, those 2 book studies that I mentioned before, and it'll take several meetings to do the work properly. There is a price tag and there is sticker shock to that. And at the same time, our philosophy of continuous improvement and having the board role modeling their own growth and improvement in this type of work would be valuable. I believe that an investment in this area will have a positive return on the investment for the district. Just so you know, I'm also exploring some other organizations that I was able to identify, and have at least one meeting scheduled here later this week to try to figure out what kind of pricing that would be. As I find more information, I'll bring it forward. There's no rush right at this second. And another thought that I had, just throwing out the question, it was a thought for the board to just think about, should we create a governance task force committee or a strategic governance team, 3 board members and myself or the core team, to identify the next steps regarding updating our governance policies and our understanding and knowledge of policy governance or coherent governance if we were to go in that route. Well, I feel that going through the additional training on improving our governance coherence is important. I also want to be mindful and complementary to the time and talents of our governance team. I'd like to finalize the work that we already started, the strategic planning, and to continue moving forward with our Neola policy adoptions. I'm confident in our abilities to make wise decisions for both, while also understanding that both are meant to be living documents that can be reviewed and adjusted as needed. That's all I have tonight, guys.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? There being none, we'll move on to board reports. We'll start with Pat on the delegate assembly report from the state convention.
Okay, thank you, Steve. As you know, at every annual board, school board association, a state convention, there's a delegate assembly. Each school district has one person who is their delegate. And the series of proposals for possible voting on and resolutions that will possibly be enacted are sent out ahead of time, which I believe you all got a copy of sometime earlier in the year. There were 10 resolutions. I'm only going to speak on a couple here quickly to let you know. First of all, just bottom line, all 10 of the resolutions that were chosen to be acted upon were passed. Okay, that's the bottom line. None of them failed. The ones that got the most discussion, and it was a 2 to 2.5 hour conference or a series of discussions, and the ones that got the most play, number 1 was the sales tax. For those of you who don't know, there's been a proposal of a 1 cent sales tax in the state of Wisconsin was promoted by the school district of Hudson, which of course, as you know, lies right over on the Minnesota border. And the idea is that the 1 cent school tax would go specifically for school infrastructure, technology, and tax relief. And believe it or not, the people from Hudson have already been talking to some of their legislators in that area, and they're Republican conservative representatives, but they're pretty open to the idea, because the bottom line here is that 30% of the intake from a 1 cent sales tax would come from out-of-state visitors. So 30% would come from basically vacationers and people who are coming into the state, and the other 60 to 65% basically would come from our own Wisconsin native people. So in essence, we would, and they estimate they would collect between 1.2 and 1.4 billion dollars in a given year. And so a goodly amount of that, hundreds of millions of dollars actually, would, to help finance the schools, would be brought in by visitors, not Wisconsin residents. So that passed. It did have some people who were not opposed or were not happy of it, and the number was 179 voted yes, 118 voted no. So it wasn't unanimous by any stretch. The next item I just want to cover is what is called Act 31. I'm not sure if all of the board members understand Act 31. I'm sure I didn't before all of this. It was the fourth resolution, and Act 31, which was adopted in 1989, mandates that all school districts spend time in their curriculum on instruction of indigenous tribes. And so the question and the proposal that was brought forward was sort of reminding districts, because a goodly number of them have seemed to have fallen by the wayside when it comes to Act 31 in terms of what it's doing on a regular basis. It passed and was adopted 169 to 104 and 109 opposed. And of course, for me, I wrote in my notes, do we monitor this in the Waupaca district? I don't know the answer to that. I'm sure Mark Flayton and some of our other staff administrators would know how to answer that a lot better than I did. But it did come up for a pretty lengthy discussion, and I thought it important for us to at least know that that's on the radar. It might come up, for all we know, in the upcoming election in the spring for the new DPI person. It's kind of a hot button issue. The last item I'll just mention to you is the one that I've seen every year since I've been here. I've been a delegate, which is the last 4 years, and that is about school district mascots, logos, and imagery, of course. And it has come up every year to try and get school districts, to those who are using Native American mascots, to get rid of them if possible and choose something else. Every year up till this year, it's failed. This year it passed. But part of the reason it passed is because the language of the proposal was sort of watered down. And it basically says that school districts will look into the possibility of changing, not mandating. It's pretty, the language that was written up was pretty innocuous, but it suggested that those who are still hanging on to Native American mascots should at least look into the possibility of making a change. And that passed fairly well. I don't have the numbers. For some reason, that was the last one of the day. And I think at the end, I forgot to write the numbers down. But I'm pretty sure that's the reason it passed. There were people in opposition, as there have been every year. But all 10 passed, and those are sort of the highlights. If you're interested in any of the others, I did write some notes and I wrote numbers down. Most of the others were not nearly as, and I hate to use the word controversial, but they didn't elicit that much discussion. They were pretty pro forma. But those three, each one lasted about a half an hour's worth of time in terms of discussion. And as you can see by the numbers, we had approximately 350 people on Zoom at the same time. The largest Zoom I've been on, And we spent a lot of the time listening to people say, "You're muted, please unmute." But other than that, there was some pretty good discussion going on. It's not the same. It's just like our meetings today. It's not the same as it has been when we were in person. It's a little bit more cumbersome. I'm sure there were things that people maybe wanted to say but found it difficult just because of the Zooming setup. But anyway, those are the highlights. And as I say, if you have any questions about it, you can talk to me at some other time. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. And with that, we'll move on to Ella for the student report, student liaison report.
So I recently had a student council meeting last Wednesday, and we have a lot of stuff that we want to do this year, but due to some of the challenges, we're not quite sure. We're just trying to get through the year and have as much, I would say, fun as possible. Some of the stuff that we have done is around the holiday times, we've had like a Kahoot, like quiz game at lunch that would pertain to the upcoming holiday. And there was also a toothpaste drive where they collected tubes of toothpaste for, I think it was the warming shelter in Waupaca. And if a student turned in toothpaste, there was some sort of like reward. I think it was ice cream treat at lunch, which boosted the engagement and caused students to want to turn in toothpaste. At the recent meeting, another thing that was brought up with Miss Principal Rabowski was that last year there was a kind of a banquet type thing that just recognized the students that had maintained good grades throughout the year. And we discussed how we should try to do that this year. And we decided to do a slideshow where you would take a picture of your certificate, and then it could go on a slideshow during lunch, and then it would be posted on the high school website and Facebook page. And I think those are some of the major things that are happening in the student world.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Upcoming meetings are February 12th, the policy committee meeting at 11 a.m. February 25th, learning in 2020-2021, stakeholders meeting at 5 p.m. February 26th, policy committee meeting at 11 a.m. March 16th, our next regular board meeting, and March 19th, the policy committee meeting. There will be one more meeting to be scheduled, and we will get you on when that will be. We'll move back up to monitoring. I went to board reports, not knowing what Ella's schedule might be, so that if she had to run at some point during either monitoring or policy committee, she could do so. With that, we'll go into monitoring with the college and career readiness.
Yeah, Steve is going to report on the ACP piece here.
Good evening, everyone. First, I want to just take a second here to thank all the CT and ACP community for their work this year. When moving from what is usually a hands-on curriculum to a hybrid, this has been a heavy lift for many of these people, and I appreciate all their hard work and their commitment during this time. So when we look at the ACP and the CTE report monitoring piece, we'll start with the ACP highlights. And just remember that for the ACP this year, it's going to look a little different than it did last year. And because of this, because we haven't had like comic kickoff where we do a lot of this training and a lot of these homeroom activities where we're going through the academic career planning phase, so they look a little bit different. So when you look at this, we've kind of got a comparable to last year. And you can see we've still been able to do quite a few amazing things. We still have our 15 dual credit courses that we're offering through Fox Valley Tech, and that is linked. So if you have some free time and you want to go see what actually we're doing, you can click through there. We have our 2 advanced standing courses. We did get 3 students just recently finish their OSHA training, and we currently right now have 5 CNA students that are going through the training here at the high school. So that's one of those wonderful things that we've been able to do here in the last couple weeks and months, that we've been able to have CNA training start again here at Waupaca High School. You'll notice our logins into Zello, which is their academic career planning platform, is down, and that would be because of that time that we dedicate usually during the school year. That time isn't there this year. So those numbers would look different this year compared to last year. Same thing here. You'll notice that right now, compared to last year, this year we have 14 youth apprenticeship students, and that looks much different than it has the last couple years. And there's some reasons for that, some changes we made, and employers couldn't promise that they would be able to hire the students for the required 450 hours that they needed to complete. So at that time, we put more students in work experience. And we also had students that just couldn't find the job, or they were concerned with COVID going on, that just wasn't a fit this year. So those numbers are down, and compared to the last 2 years, as you see, we are up in the work experience because that's a smaller amount of numbers that they needed. And then we're also looking at, we can change before March 25th if they have enough hours that they'd be able to move to youth apprenticeship, that we would be able to switch them at that time. Right now, you're going to see these numbers are very different than the numbers you saw from last year, because last year when we did this in April and not in February. And so right now, as of this moment, Julie Casabucky was able to put together that currently we have 8 students that have been accepted to UWSP, which is right in our backyard, and 6 students accepted to Fox Valley Technical College, and 3 military bound. Usually through Waupaca Works, we bring in Fox Valley Tech and UW Stevens Point and many different colleges, and so they can meet with our students right in Waupaca Works right there. And that's how we have a lot of the signings happening in there where kids are registering for classes. So those numbers will grow a lot here in the next 2 months. So if you want to know what they were last year, I could show that to you also. Right here, these were our career-based learning benchmarks that we showed last year in April, that we were going to say for each grade level that we wanted to have students, their outcomes for that would be. I'm just having them here again because we weren't able to implement any of these this past year. And so we will definitely look forward to implementing these in the fall. So students, we have these outcomes as we kind of maybe get back to a new normal. Now we'll move to CTE. And these are the areas that are covered in CTE. We have family consumer science, technology education, computer science, ag science, and business. And we've had kind of a change this year as we had a retirement late summer. And so we moved up Sheila Krosberg to the high school here for family consumer science. And she's been doing a great job. And then we had somebody hired down at the middle school, and because of health reasons, we've had to get a long-term sub for the replacement. So currently right now we're interviewing, I think on Thursday or Friday of this week for that position, along with the retirement of Mike Walschmidt here. We'll have to replace that position also at the middle school. Here's some highlights though. I mean, no matter what, even though our students weren't in the buildings all the time, or it was limited what they could do, we were able to finally upgrade all the joiner blades in Jake Cogger's wood shop area. So if you ever have a chance and you want to go in there, you never used to be able to hear. And now you can actually have a conversation from about 20 feet away with each other of how quiet it's become in there. And so it's really changed the safety and the dynamics of that room, that's for sure. We also bought software so that we could teach computer science remotely in Heather Crotterwelt's room. And this has been an amazing ascend also, because they were able to do these on Chromebooks. And so they didn't have to be physically in the room. It's more of a simulation, but it also had some great teaching modules that allowed her to do what she needed to do remotely, whether they were here, AB students, or when they were at home, even in the spring. Manufacturing, we were able to purchase 2 new lathes actually, and they should be showing up, of course, though they're back ordered. So Brian has been doing a great job with this, but they should be coming in soon here, so that way he can continue to work on his articulated courses and continue moving on with the partnerships we've been building. This last one here is we were able to purchase software to teach keyboardings on Chromebooks. If you know, they usually use a desktop computer to do keyboarding and typing and all the things we need to do. And I was lucky enough to stop in there today, and I'm watching this happen, and there's students at home and they're typing in the lesson. She's able to watch what they're doing and help them at home while there's students in her classroom. And the cool part is I pointed this out to Ron and to Mark, and you'll hear more about Schoology here in a little bit, was she was able to have that stuff automatically be graded while it was happening, spit it back to Schoology, and then it was kicking it out a grade to Infinite Campus, all in real time and giving the kids feedback. So it was pretty amazing to watch. Over the holidays, this is kind of nice, and you guys probably saw an article in the paper on this, and hopefully you've heard more about this, is the culinary arts students made and donated over 40 spaghetti sauce meals for the local warming shelter here, Foundations of Living. This project was made possible by a grant from the Wisconsin Beef Council. So if you run into Amanda Nelson or Sheila Krosberg, hey, just tell them great job with this, and we had it on our Facebook page, and that was a pretty amazing thing that they did, and especially during a strange time. CNA courses, I already said, you know, they're being run here in our building. We actually, Sheila Krosberg is actually taking the course with the students starting in March, so that's pretty amazing also. And then also the Comet House, hopefully we're going to get that finished now that we're able to have more students and our subcontractors working back into that building. Here's some pictures of some cool things just to make you feel a little bit better of all the neat things that were happening. Here on, we have a student that was using the plasma cutter. Oh, go back one. The plasma cutter to make a cool sign for his house. There's students right there that were making for the warming shelter, some of the food things they were making. Then you've got right here Jake Cogger's class where they're outside cutting the logs up that you might see the logs out there every once in a while. And we've got a sawmill that they cut these in and they use them for class. Here's another one where they were doing machining during a pandemic where all the pieces were actually donated by local community members here. And then they were cut out, so using the school equipment. Here's our robotic club that the robotic tournaments are going on. And it's kind of a neat situation. So you see there's not many people there, but they have to come at certain times to do this. And I think that might be it, Mr. Flayton. So anytime you guys want to or have questions about CTE or you want to know a little bit more, hey, just give me a call, stop in and see me. I bet you we can get you to walk down there if you want to see some of the things going on pretty soon.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? If not, we can move on to the Schoology updates.
So yeah, this next part, we've got a couple of videos and then we've got a couple of teachers who are hanging out live with us, and it's really to provide us with an update of how Schoology is being used in our district. So first we'll start off with the 2 videos and then we'll switch into the teachers who are live with us.
All right, take 2, Schoology video for the Board of Education. I tried to go the first time and it ended up being 8 minutes and I still had more to talk about, and I was told to try to keep it under 3. So let's try and do a little bit better this time and maybe do a little quick showcase instead of really going into detail. So first thing I want to walk you through is the dashboard. I think the best thing about the dashboard is this reminder section. It shows me that I have 6 ungraded assignments and I can click on it. And then I can gain access to see who's turned in the assignments, who has not. That has been pretty cool. I actually think it's really awesome that it's 9:07 in the morning and I have 6 students who have already turned in their geometry homework, and I've not taught geometry yet today. So how cool is that for them to be able to have access to the material anytime, anywhere. Doesn't matter if they have 3rd hour geometry or 8th hour geometry. If they're at home, they have access. So I want to just kind of walk you through, I guess, the geometry to showcase really geometry and what we do as a team in the math department. So the first thing is everything we do is built in our sandbox. So between the 3 of us, we take and we divvy out the next couple of weeks or the next couple of days out about a week, and we say, okay, I'm going to take Friday, you take Monday, I'll take Tuesday, and then we build our assignments into our Schoology page. So if we could take a look at just Unit 7, this is our current unit, and this is how far out we are, and anything we need, you know, anything we do, we make notes to each other, so need to add video yet. So we're not quite out this far, but what I want to show you is that every day, so in our unit, every day, we post an assignment, and then within that assignment is a recorded video that coincides with this hyperlink for notes. So the student can pull up the notes, take a look at the notes, and then follow along with the recorded video that is on Schoology. Then they can open up the assignment, and because, I should have opened it with Cami. Because we loaded up with Cami, they can edit the document and then just hit this turn in button. And then I can provide feedback right on this document as to how well they're doing or not doing. And let's see, almost the 3 minutes already. Okay, so last thing I want to show you is that then once they submit, being able to pull the, being able to write on the document to provide feedback. So let me just show you a test that we did in stats and how I was able to just put feedback right on the, so I talked to Brooke, she said it was okay. I was able to put feedback right on the assignment that was turned in. So this is a test that was submitted. And as you can see, I can then electronically provide feedback on her test. So then she can take a look, learn from it, and then we take a second test later this week, actually today. And she can then improve on the learning that she made from the test. So that is, I'm at 4 minutes, and I guess I really feel like 3 minutes doesn't do Schoology justice because there's so much more I could show you. But if you wanted to learn more, just shoot me an email and I can help walk you through anything else. Thanks for listening.
So the reason why we try to keep the video short, of course, is because everybody's got a different perspective and you're going to see 4 different renditions kind of the same thing. So I hope Mr. Frank doesn't get too upset that Mr. Lonzak took a little bit more than 4 minutes. That's okay.
Hi, everyone. Welcome, school board, administration, and anyone else watching or viewing this video. I am honored to kind of show off my Schoology page. I teach elementary art K-5, and I'm making this video for the middle school, 5th grade. So I am showing you now the home screen of my 5th grade art students. So when they come to this homepage, I've tried to make it as simple and easy to understand and clean. And so if you are joining virtually, meaning you are either live virtual or you are needing help, maybe you're on demand, but you can join the live class that day, so you can do that. Or let's say you're quarantining, you would click on my Google Meet. That would take you right into my classroom virtually. So there's that on the top. Then here we have a general course overview. Inside of that, this is a video just like this one kind of that helps you navigate the Schoology page. So it's a nice walkthrough of how to find everything on the page. And then also a doc that goes over my class expectations in art, whether you are virtual or in person. Now after that, we have the green folder here, which are art projects. This year, I cannot demonstrate around a table, strictly because of the close quarters and distancing guidelines. So this year, every single one of my demonstrations is pre-recorded and put on here so that it is available to any virtual student that needs it. And then also available to my in-person who are also in need of knowing how to do each step. So we're going to click on that. Now my 5th graders are working on a scissor overlap lesson, which you will see right away shows the learning targets that I'm looking at for that lesson. And down below, you can also find any previous lessons taught in case you're behind or you need something from that. Then we click on the actual lesson. Now in this lesson, I usually show about 2 days worth of steps and directions. And then below that, they go into the previous day's lessons, which you can search by date. You'll notice on the ones up above here, we have the day that this works for. This one was for the 21st through the 22nd, so there's multiple days. where this one down below is for the 25th. Now, normally this would be down below because today's date is more important, but I just switched it around for this video. You also will notice that available to the students throughout the entire project, we have the lesson rubric, where it's clear as to why they're getting the grade that they're getting and what I'm looking for throughout. So if I click on the first day of the lesson, inside of here we have the supplies that they will need for today's step or throughout the entire project. A short little kind of what you need to do that day. And then if it's the first day of the lesson, I like to give them a little lesson summary so that they can see what they're doing for this project. So you have the first day kind of begin to learn about the scissor drawing, and then multiple days after. And then in this, we have the first video demonstration. So these videos are made by me and then uploaded to YouTube, and then they are embedded in Schoology. So it's really nice. I have them stored in YouTube, and I can grab them, and whether it's this year or 3 years from now. But the students then click. Okay, everyone, to the next project for 5th grade. This is and then you listen to a riveting demonstration by me. But it gives them a visual, and I kind of over-explain. That way it usually answers a lot of questions that the students have. And this is the same whether they're in kindergarten all the way through 5th grade. Below that, I will have examples. So they have not only the video, but they have a visual again of what they need to do. After that, you can click on the next day, and then some days I don't have a video because it's just a work day, but it kind of, this is a lot of words, but they can handle it in 5th grade, where in kindergarten, I might have more pictures, a little bit more age appropriate. So getting out of that, that's kind of how the art projects work and the demonstrations. And then down on Wednesdays, we also have Wednesday Enrichment, which is a 15-minute lesson for all kindergarten through 5th grade students. And in that, we have created, myself and Mrs. Burns have created a Get Smart with Art, where basically each week we make a video. And in that video, we kind of walk the students through what we want them to watch, why they're watching it, what they're supposed to get out of it. We do a lot of our teaching through these videos, and then there are supplemental learning through the videos that we attach. So this week, to get the students engaged, we're doing Learn How Legos Are Made, but then bringing in the art aspect of it, we introduce them to artists that are using Legos as a sculptural piece, and then also as a 2D portrait piece. So we're using lots of definitions there, exposing them to artwork that maybe we never would talk about usually. And that's on Wednesdays. And the last thing, sorry, I also have if I'm absent, which is gray right now because it's not viewable by the students, but if I was absent, inside of that, I have probably about 2 weeks worth of lessons inside of here ready to go. I just have to publish them and make them visible to the students. So these are, again, videos that I've created being prepared. So I know that that was a lot, but I have put a lot of work into this page, and I'm finding that the students are getting a lot out of it too, which is really the reason why we do what we do. So thank you for letting me share this, and hopefully it was easy to understand. Thanks.
Awesome work. Thank you, Matt. Next, we have Brianna Haas is going to go from the CEC here. What happened? Sandy, are you able to share your screen? Is Brianna able to pull off yours? because you're the organizer of it, are you going to have to do the screen share? Brianna, are you ready to go?
Yep, I'm all set.
All right, can you present? Do you have the present now button, or do we need to, there we go.
You see it?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Well, hello everyone. I'm Brianna Haas. I'm a 3-5 teacher over at the CEC, and I teach a hybrid class. So that means I have students who are in person, students who are live virtual, and students who are on-demand virtual. So I have the whole gambit, which is fun. And this is just an overview of my homeroom course page that I use for a majority of the day. Most of my class is taught in my advisory class with my advisory group of students, but we do switch for our grade level teaching for math. So I have a separate Schoology course just for math. And that one looks pretty similar to this one. So I'll just go over the homeroom course to give you an overview of kind of how my page works and what I use it for.
Here, and I can see.
Do you want me to pause for a second?
Okay, now we can see you. There we go. Okay, I'm sorry, Brandon. Now we got you.
Oh, that's okay. Perfect. So for my Schoology course, it's just an overview of the page. It kind of sets the kids up for the daily schedule. So they start every morning by clicking on this week virtual to-do list, especially if they're a virtual student. And it'll take them to a Google Doc that I have set up that gives them in each column their assignments for the day. It gives them the Google Meets that they'll need to use if they're joining us live. And it also gives them exactly where to find everything in Schoology or on their teachers page. And it also at the bottom gives them their special teachers Google Meets links as well. So it just is their kind of checklist for the day. I have had some parents say that they like to print that out so that the kids can check off what they've accomplished throughout the day, and it's been a good tool for them. So then we start the day off with advisory, and this is our morning meeting time and our morning work time. And this folder is pretty sparse because I like to keep it simple for my kiddos. So I have the weeks folder and then all the previous week's folder. So this goes through the weeks that we've had since the start of the school year. So for this specific week's folder, I have each day has a folder available. And you'll notice there's a gray section, so these aren't published yet because they haven't gotten to that day of the week. But for today's folder, they'll find their morning work assignments as well as a recording of the Google Meets that I had for the day. So I record my Google Meets as I'm teaching live for students, for my on-demand students to go back and watch at a later time. And the morning work is an assignment that's in Google Slides. So this is an example of one of my students, and I've asked permission for the students that I'm sharing their examples from and their parents as well. So this is Braden's assignment where he showed his some grammar skills here. And then the second page is where I asked students to complete works in their morning work notebooks so that they do practice their handwriting skills as well still. And then the last page is to just share how they're feeling. And today he felt a little lucky. And so this is a good check-in for me, especially for those on-demand learners who I don't get to have those conversations with as much throughout the day, so that I can see how they're doing and if they need any support from me. And then going on down back into my overall homeroom course page, it reminds them to go to their math course for the next part of the day, and then we move on to writing. And writing is a pretty similar structure as that advisory folder. It gives you the week that we're working on, previous weeks, and then also specific unit files that I have that expand more than just that 1 week. So right now we're just moving into fairy tale writing. So I have specific fairy tale files for work that the kids are working on. Our last unit that we did was opinion writing. And I wanted to push the kids to actually practice their handwriting skills. I noticed at the beginning of the year, I had them type out their writing in a Google Doc, and a lot of students were using the voice to text typing in the Google Doc so that they weren't using their typing skills and growing on those skills. So I asked the students for this past unit to actually write out their work in a notebook and then take a picture of their work for that day and post it into this Google Docs so that I could see their writing. And I can also give comments and suggestions along the way. So this is one of my students writing over the course of our last opinion writing, which was kind of fun to read. Back to the home page again. Moving on down to reading. Again, I kind of have that same similar structure so the kids get used to it. Again, we have that week folder with every day's folder inside of that with our videos, recorded videos. But for reading, I also have the students' weekly word study lists, folk tales around the world chart that we're working on for more than just that week 23 time. And then their specific reading group folders. So inside of these reading group folders, each group has a specific job, and then also any other reading assignments that I'll have for those specific reading groups will be found inside of those folders. And then the final thing I want to show you is the projects folder down at the bottom. This goes over our project work for the week on top of our specific project that we're working on, which spans more than just that week, and other general project material files, as well as those previous weeks that we've worked on. So for our general materials, these are really important things that we use every single project cycle at the CEC. So we have research files, planning phases, reflection phases, and rubrics. But this appropriate research websites has been a really key tool for a lot of students during their research time. It's just a doc that I put together that has links that students can follow to take them directly to research engines that I've vetted and that I know will be appropriate for them and also useful for them and easy for them to read to navigate and find information on their specific topics. So that's been a really helpful tool for them. But also our specific project that we're working on right now is a choice project. So the students get to choose their topic that they want to research and learn more about and investigate and find a new hobby. And so for our choice project materials, I have a few assignments in here that are really important. And the start of our choice project was an interest survey. I asked students to complete this in Kami, which you saw from a couple of the other presentations, how Kami was used. I can't show it to you now because it will show you all my students in my class's names, and for confidentiality reasons, I can't show everyone's names, but I will show you an example of one student's interest survey. And in Kami, I really like the feature where kids can draw in it. So you'll see that she drew in some X's to show some interest that she has, but they can also use text boxes to actually type out things as well. So it's just an awesome tool that Schoology has to encourage kids to still kind of work like they normally would in a notebook, but also use some of those typing skills that we're trying to reinforce, especially this year with all the digital aspects that we're incorporating. And finally, down at the bottom is my general information. As the other teachers kind of mentioned, it just gives welcome information and some how-to videos for parents and students to know how to navigate Schoology and any other assignments I post. So that's all I got for you guys today.
Awesome work, Rana. Thank you so much. And I see Matt's on too, and thank you again. Before we open up to any questions, we have one last presentation from Ms. Snyder at the WLC, and then we will probably give a big round of thanks to those presenting today and open it up for questions. So Kerrigan, are you ready?
I am ready.
Awesome. You want to go and present?
Yes. Should be. Okay, can you see it?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so I teach third grade at the WLC, and I started this year with all virtual students. So I have mine set up for teaching both live, remote, and on demand, and we've just left it that way since having students come back, they're familiar with the layout of this, and so that's what we go with. When they log into my course, they see this page right away, and it shows them their live remote schedule. They can click here and the on-demand lessons. I'll show you in a second how I post all my lessons there. And then there's a button for the Google Meeting here as well. and then my phone number is off to the side. So that's kind of where everything is in one spot. And then if they go to the second slide, there's all different websites we use, like Epic, Flipgrid, Happy Numbers, things like that. And when they click on any of these buttons, it takes them right to those websites. I have subject folders below that I use just for resources for students. I don't put lessons weekly or daily into these folders. When you go into the math folder, there's different anchor charts, pictures of their count bys, some videos for multiplication. Here's a math tools resource. I won't open it up, but it's got virtual manipulatives that the students can use. When they go into the writing folder, there's different anchor charts, and we're doing opinion writing right now. So there's a couple different resources that they can use in their reading folder. I have a virtual word wall here that they can go to, and some resources for their journeys reading as well. I have a previous assignments folder down here, and then my general information is where I put all of my newsletters that I send out each month, and then as well as my Meet the Teacher letter that I sent at the beginning of the year. And if you open any of these documents, it has email address, my phone number, different contact information, and things like that for parents. I find that I don't have a lot of parents using Schoology, so I send all of my materials to them via Class Dojo or email, but I do have it in that folder in case they were to go on there. Most of what I post for my students are in these on-demand lessons or live remote, depending on what style learning they're doing. Even my students in person log into this quite often. And this is the whole week laid out in just kind of one spot for students. This is last week's lessons, but there are tabs here on the bottom where they can go to this week's lessons, and next week's I even have on here as well. It's taking a little bit to load, but each day is in a different column. Like this is Monday's work, and they can click on a lesson that I've taught and open that link up right here. Or they can go to Tuesday and follow those assignments as well and complete that work. And then if they were to look ahead to next week, they could look at some of the assignments I've posted on there for them as well. But all of their assignments, links for even their specials are right in this spreadsheet here for them. So it's just a little bit simpler than going through all the different folders. I found that that's what works best for my class. And then my live remote learners are similar, but theirs is set up as Google Slides instead of the spreadsheet for them. So I could go into more detail, but I'll keep it short and sweet. I don't know if you have any questions or kind of how we do things.
Yeah, I want to say thank you to Mr. Frank and to Mr. Delonzak and Ms. Snyder and Ms. Haas for sharing with us what you guys do. I think what you guys showed is awesome. I think the power of Schoology is a lot in the users and how you've taken advantage of it and learned about it and really put it to use for our students and our staff and our parents. And so I thank you, and I thank you all for sharing. I think you all touched on slightly different aspects of how it gets utilized too, for example. But yet, I also noticed that there's a lot of consistencies between that. So as a parent, regardless of the teacher my student has or how many students I have, there are consistencies to help me navigate those things too. So I appreciate that as well. I will open it up to the board if there are any questions. But thank you guys for doing this.
I will start. Kerrigan had mentioned something about parental use being very limited. Is that true throughout all of the grade levels? And is that something that we need to perhaps promote more than we have?
I think I can answer that. When we did this, we met exclusively with a team of stakeholders, Mark Flayton and I did, about how we wanted to really roll this out. And we really wanted to focus on teachers and students first, knowing that the parent piece would be coming second, but really that our focus really had to be to make sure our staff was comfortable and where they were going before we opened up that parent portal piece, because there's some huge tools that are still available in here from activities that we're going to be able to do that there's really only a small piece that we've actually used of it this year. So that parent piece is coming. We had to figure out how to roll it out the right way, and that was not available right when school came out, because we wanted to make sure that we did it correctly.
Great, thank you.
I have a question. This is Pat. Just more about process. So all of your students throughout the district have Chromebooks. Are all of the Schoology materials put on with a Chromebook from the teacher perspective, or do you use desktop computers? I mean, in other words, is everything compatible right from the get-go?
Yes, they can use, Pat, they can use a Chromebook, a desktop, a MacBook, whatever they would like to use. It's available to them. We have the link. They actually log into a link that we have provided to them, whether it's in ClassLink or it's in the drop-down menu that they have access to. It's actually even on our district webpage that they can get through it that way also.
Okay, thanks.
I have just one comment to make, and that is I can see why those Wednesdays were so important to you teachers. And to maintain this, and being someone that used to work all weekend maintaining for my classes, I don't know where I would have found the time to also maintain this type of a website that you folks are doing. So congratulations on all the fine work you've done.
Sandy, it looked like you had a question or comment.
Yeah.
I have a question. Yes, for Matt, about posting on YouTube and those lessons. So 2 questions really. Are those accessible to anyone? Like if I go to YouTube and I type your name in or the name of the school, will I find those?
Yeah, you can. And, you know, we had questions and fears of that as well, but everything that we make obviously is child appropriate. And then the nice thing about Schoology is that you embed the videos so the students don't get the ads. They don't get any other things. So that's a huge, Schoology works really well with YouTube. It's the easiest way for me to upload my videos. And I think this year, I think I'm up to 160 videos so far that I've had to make for demonstrations. So having all of that stored not on my computer, but having that on there that I can access is really nice. But then also controlling what the students can see and do is also a nice control.
And so is that also true for things like the videos that you have for Art Insider or the Lego artists?
Yeah, so I'll embed those. Now that is a control that I'm putting in. I have to supervise all that. I mean, if I would put something that wasn't, appropriate, that's on me. But I'm finding those to help supplement what I'm trying to teach, and I'm watching those before I put them on. So.
I went and watched those too and ended up buying T-shirts.
Yeah. The students trying to find ways to teach things in our curriculum that we can't meet because of, shortened class periods, maybe now having the students in class or other things, finding interests in a different way has been really helpful. And then them talking about what they learned and having that short discussion in each class is really great.
We just don't want other schools stealing your talent from us through YouTube. Betty, you had a comment?
Yeah. For the teachers, do you think this form of education, using these videos and in this very concise chart and whatever, do you think in some ways that's made your job easier, or has it really made your job more difficult?
Is that for me or for anyone?
Any of them.
I'll speak since it's different. It's harder. It's a lot more hours. But being able to have the materials there for, if I would demonstrate at a table, the students have one chance to get what they need out of it. When I have that video now, any student that maybe spaces out while I'm playing and explaining things, they always can now go back and rewatch that and relearn, reteach. So for that aspect, it's great for art, but it's a totally different way of teaching.
Mm-hmm. Ladies, how about you?
I would say that it's definitely kept me organized. So I have to be very specific in planning and really know what the expectations are for students and what supports not only students but their parents need, especially if they're virtual. I've received good feedback from like the charts and the weekly planners from parents and students, and it seems to be successful for them. So hopefully it's helping students as well be more organized, but takes a lot more time, like Matt said.
Here again?
I enjoyed the fact that they can always go back, like what was mentioned, or if they miss a day, they're sick or something. I found that like kids they're not even sick anymore. Like if they're sick, they want to log on and do all of their work anyway. So that's been a good way that they can, still keep up with the lessons and things like that. It's been hard to not be as mobile and have to teach mainly in front of a camera. Because I have kids in my classroom and then I also have kids online. So that's been a little bit of a struggle. But other than that, I think it's been good. But yeah, it definitely keeps me more organized too.
And does it, like you just mentioned, I would think for students that have a hard time organizing, and I think it would appear that it might help them be a little more organized in expectations. And I'm trying to see positives in all of this. So I guess that would be one for the little student that maybe doesn't have their act together every day all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I found that the ones that have parental help at home or someone have been able to stay on track really well, but the ones that don't, it's difficult for them to manage their time and get everything in during the day, the independent activities especially. But when they're live, like on a Google meeting, they do better that way.
Well, thank you for all. That was awesome.
All three of you have indicated that it's very time intensive. Do you think that is a learning curve? Do you think it's something that'll pay off in the longer run because you'll have things stored and more accessible in the future? Do you think it'll always be time intensive? Any impressions? Nobody wants to step up on that one, huh?
It's getting easier, but I don't want to say that because it's still a lot of work. But I think every year it's going to be a little bit easier, but it was a huge learning curve in the beginning of the school year. So I think some of us are finally starting to kind of not come in every weekend or work every night. So hopefully it becomes a little less work, but
I agree with that. At the beginning of the year, it was just very stressful. And it's starting to feel less like a burden and more like, okay, I'm getting in my routines and I can get it done sporadically throughout the week to be ready for the next week. But looking to the future, I don't know if I'm going to stay in this grade band and if, the grade band level will change. So then I'll have to create a whole new course and whole new materials in the future, which is going to be a lot of work. And just thinking for new teachers in the future as well, that's going to be a whole nother layer of stress that's going to be added to them when they come into the district and join a new school and have to set up this on top of setting up a classroom community and just a classroom. So that's been something, for me as a new teacher in the district on top of, coming in a COVID year. It's been a lot.
I have one additional question, and this is a question related to how does this work from a student's perspective? So if you're a student and you're doing real-time remote learning, and I guess this would be a question that would apply to any grade level because, for example, Matt is an art teacher who doesn't work with the same students all day long, but is a portion of every student's class. So a student logs in and they're greeted by their homeroom teacher. And do they have to log in again when they're getting different presentations? Or even at the high school, you're taking geometry 1 hour and a social studies class the next. How Does that technology work?
Steve, are you able to show like a homepage screen or anything like that? Or I know Kerrigan and Brianna, you guys have, like, you can share your screen, but each student has like a home page for each of the classes that they have that day. So they'll have like a Schoology for art, music, Phi-Ed, and then also anything that the teacher creates, the classroom teacher for that day. And I'm sure the high school works the same with their subjects. Yeah. So
That's
by
what Kerrigan is showing it from a teacher standpoint, but it would look very similar from a student standpoint.
And as far as greeting your students every new class, if they're joining live virtual, then they're joining usually a Google Meets live with the class. So like this right now. And yeah, we have those conversations, those introductory conversations. Like when we switch from our advisory class to then go to our math classes, they have to join a different Google Meets link. And kind of had to struggle to navigate back and forth at the beginning of the year, but now it's really quick and easy for them.
And what's really nice is that the classroom teacher does not have to worry about art at all. I can give them access to my page, that classroom teacher, but really it is my own domain. It's my own, everything they submit. So when they're submitting pictures of their artwork, it goes right into that class folder that I've created with the assignments, and then everything is right there for me. So I see it, and they're only in my class when they're with me. So it's really, really nice for that, because last year we were getting sent emails of their artwork. So it's a nice organizational piece.
If I could just, Mark, butt in here for a second. I just wanted to say that, you know, we talked about this as an admin team when we first started talking about this. Usually this is like a year, almost 2-year project that you implement this. So our teachers rocked this. They really, truly did. And if you look at their work on Schoology versus other districts, I can tell you we are miles and miles ahead of where they are. It warmed my heart today when I was talking to one of the teachers here. And this is their second time around. So they've taught the class. This is the second time because they did it first semester. And they were like, this is amazing because of the fact that they get to spend more time with the kids than trying to create, because they've already created. They're just fine tuning, and that they were able to grab each other's coursework. So if I'm a second grade teacher and I'm switching, all that second grade teacher stuff is still going to be there. So we can pull it into yours as this works. So our teachers have done an amazing job with all of this. And my hats off to all of them just because of what they were able to do. And it was a very stressful, and I can imagine that. And we had lots of conversations that this is usually a 2-year timeline, not a 3-month timeline. So we asked them to move mountains, and they did.
And we appreciate it very much, everyone. Any other questions? Thank you very much to the presenters. Thank you very much to all that are involved that weren't presenting. We very much appreciate your dedication and your service to the students and communities.
Thank you.
With that, we'll move on to Policy Committee. Mr. Fair.
Okay, Mark Clayton, if you'll be so kind as to put up the information, the first thing on the agenda. I kind of lost sight of my agenda. I was watching all of the other materials there for quite a while. The first thing that we did was after we met was to adopt the WASB equity policy. And I think as Mark puts that up, everybody has had a chance to see that. And we know that this is, I shouldn't say a policy, it's an equity statement. And we know that this is just a document or a statement that we're going to be using quite a bit and have lots of different aspects to it over time. So from a committee point of view, we believe that it's a good jumping off spot, and it is a fluid document. We know that, and we know that it can be changed over time, but we did decide that this particular equity statement would be a good place for us to start. So from the point of the committee, we would ask the board as a whole to adopt the School District of Waupaca equity statement as presented.
Okay, that being a committee recommendation, it needs no second. Is there any discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, the next piece that we have to look at is board compensation. We put together, and we had a long discussion on the compensation. As you know, there are kind of two aspects to this. The bylaws that we have in place have to be changed for auditing purposes. And so we had to either eliminate the stipend concept or go entirely with stipend, or we had to stay with a per meeting compensation and do that alone. And after quite a bit of discussion, we put together a proposal, and if Mark, if you would put that up for us, this is just the information that led us to the next one, which is really the one that we're recommending. And that is that we do away with the stipends as we have previously had in this district and go completely with a payment per meeting schedule. And you see that a dollar amount listed for you. And we also tried to limit some of the other things that we had on our old policy, and that is the amount of time and meetings were held, and also giving the opportunity for excessive or more compensation for excessive meetings and so forth. So we put this together after, again, a lot of debate, discussion, and we would put forward the document as you see as the new compensation package for the District of Waupaca.
That being a committee recommendation, it needs no second. Is there any discussion?
And Pat, this would take effect beginning when?
Well, it was the understanding that, if I'm not mistaken, it was the understanding of the committee that this would take effect at the beginning of May, or May 1, if you will, which then would allow for spring elections to happen. And so therefore nobody then would be voting basically on their own increase.
Thank you.
Mr. Hackett had a comment?
Yes. Pat, I know we went through a lot of work, or your committee did, and I've thought very hard about this since your committee met that time. But I want to make a statement, and I would like to say the members of the School District of Waupaca Board of Education deserves a raise. I would like to see wages for board members increased to $56 per meeting. Each meeting should be limited to 1.5 to 2 hours long. Any meeting lasting longer than 2 hours should be considered another meeting. And without seeing a raise now probably means that there will not be a raise for these hardworking people for many, many years. And I base that conclusion on the fact of past practices of the school board, and also being a member of city council, it works the same way. So I went with what was said a long time ago while we were discussing all this, or you were, and I went with president $70, clerk $60, treasurer $60, board members $56, and then changing the time of the meetings also. And I am bringing that up so that it can be in discussion if wanted. If not, that's fine. At least I brought it up.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
Committee members, any response to that?
I'd like to say thank you, Steve, for this recommendation that you're making. And if we don't adjust this recommendation today, perhaps we could build into it a time to review it where we would look at it again, so that 5 or more years don't go by between the time we adopt this and the time that we look at it again. So if I were to amend the motion to say that this be reviewed every 2 years or within 2 years, does something like that seem reasonable?
Discussion?
Well, certainly, even I think it's reasonable. I think these are the kinds of policies that we unfortunately have let go for way too long. And then by the time we revisit them, people think we're making this huge jump when it should be visited on a much more timely basis. There could be a statement that would simply say the compensation board policy compensation package would be looked into annually. Doesn't mean it has to be changed, but it simply means it would be brought up on an annual basis or a biannual basis and look at it and either change it or move on.
Yeah, and not anticipating this would be part of the discussion today. I believe there is something in our governance manual that talks about periodic reviews of all of the policies. And so before setting something separate for this one policy, I think it would be worth taking a look at that. I think that would be my recommendation, and we could.
If that's a recommendation for all policies, then we would have to take that up at another point, not as a part of this motion.
That's, yes, that is my thought, that we could move on this motion and then review that, and if need be, revisit it to add something if that were appropriate. I'm not sure it's needed though.
Okay, well, why don't we do that then, Sandy and Steve, based upon your comments. We can pass this motion, and then I know Ron is taking notes here, and we have a meeting coming up on Friday of this week for policy, because we have a whole long laundry list of policies to look at yet.
We do have time to add it to that agenda, but I don't want to necessarily set any policy at this point, because that's not a part of this motion.
Right, that's what I'm suggesting, that we don't do that now, but Ron, you could just make a note that we would look at that amended concept on Friday when we have our policy committee meeting, if that would be okay.
Yeah, I can do that.
Other discussion?
Yeah, I guess I have one question. Steve, how did you arrive at 56? That sounded, it's kind of like random. I didn't.
No, it wasn't random. We had a meeting a while back and somebody brought that 56 into it, and I thought that was a good figure. I've only been on the school board 5 years, but some of you people have been on the school board a long time, and you haven't had a raise in a long, long time, and I thought you deserved it.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, then I will call the question. The motion is to adjust to board treasurer 55, board clerk 55, and board president 60. At this point, the current board member payment is 50. Therefore, that would not be a change. Correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. And this would take effect at May 1, you said, is the recommendation?
That would be the recommendation, that this would take effect as of May 1, 2021. And also, Steve, just a reminder to the board, what we're really doing here too is eliminating the stipends.
Correct.
And this motion is also approving the Neola policy as well. It's not just the governance manual policy, right?
It would be well, let me ask that. Is that the governance or the Neola operational?
Well, that was, I was still a little confused with that, but I think, Ron, when we were in discussion at the committee level, it was the idea that this would be comparable at both levels, if you will, right? The Neola at both levels, if you will, right? The Neola as well as, no, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, there's two separate policies. There's the actual Neola policy that we need approval for, and then also the changes here for this governance policy, Pat. So there's the two that we need.
This would only be the governance one, is that correct?
Yeah, unless they, I mean, we have it listed on the agenda as two separate items,
Yes.
but you could combine them together.
Well, that's why I know you were trying to, when you put the agenda together, I was under the impression that this would serve for both of them.
No, there's some language that they recommend that's in that policy, the only one that Mark has up on the screen right now, that we need to have.
Yeah, there are tax implications, or there have been in the law related to saying you don't want to accept
Oh, okay.
that.
Well,
And I actually, at some point, when we start looking at meshing these, we can talk about that issue again. But I do agree, there's some language in the Neola policy that I think is important, but isn't included in our governance manual.
okay. So we could certainly take each of them.
This is for the governance manual as the motion then, correct?
Correct.
Okay. With that, I'll call the question. Roll call.
Waupaca,
No.
Betty Mannion,
Yes.
Pat Fair,
Aye.
Art Paul,
Aye.
Sandy Robinson,
Yes.
Dale Phelps,
Yes.
Steve Johnson,
Yes.
So then, Steve, if you, or Mark, if you would, could you back up then? We'll take a look at that Neola. Then I thought we were kind of combining the two, but evidently we need to make to take this one separately. So at the committee level, we didn't find anything in this compensation, this Neola compensation 0144.1 that was objectionable. So I would move then that we would recommend it from the committee level to be adopted.
Okay, that being a committee recommendation, it needs no second. Is there any discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you.
Okay. Then do we need to take each of the following individually, or could we do them as a group? I can't remember how we did it last meeting.
You can do it as a group, Pat.
Okay, then I would make a recommendation from the committee that the electoral process Neola 0142.1, qualifications Neola 0142.2, W131 term Neola 0142.3, the oath Neola 0142.4, recall Neola 0142.6, conflict of interest Neola 0144.3, indemnification Neola 0144.4, required student academic standards agenda item Neola 0151.2, and quorum Neola 0162 all be adopted.
And that being a committee recommendation, it needs no second. Is there any discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. We'll go on to the instructional committee.
Okay, the instructional committee met on February 1st at 10:30 a.m. And myself was present, and Betty Mannion and Patrick Fair, who were on the committee, were virtual, and the rest of the board members were there as well. It was Mr. Flayton brought to our attention that the 2022-2023 school calendar, which we're doing a 2-year rollout on the school calendars. There was one problem with the 2022-2023 school year, in particular with Martin Luther King Jr. is a federal holiday. Option A gave off the day for both students and staff. and that would have been on January 16th. Option B, and that would have added then, that adds a day to the end of the school year. And otherwise, option B said that we would have that as a regular school day and not have to add a day at the end of the year. So the discussion was that it was pretty close to the coming back from Christmas break. January 16th would be Martin Luther King birthday. January 20th would be the end of the semester. And January 23rd is a work day for teachers. And our committee then is saying that we put forward to the board as a recommendation that we go with A, which said that these teachers and students would be off on January 16th to, in regard to looking at respecting Martin Luther King Day. And then we would have to add a day at the end of the calendar year. So that's our recommendation to the board.
That being a committee recommendation, it needs no second. Is there any discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Administration.
This first item here is the second Friday in January enrollment count. Mark, are you going to take that one?
Sure. I mean, this is just more of a technical count to show student enrollment, and then it factors in all sorts of things. I kind of gave you guys a brief update on enrollment count last time, so I don't know, this is a formality part of it. I don't know if there's any other questions from here.
Largely for information, are there any questions? There being none, thank you very much. We'll move on to the CISA 5 lease agreement for 21-22.
Yeah, this is an annual item, and you've been doing this the last several years. This year, the language in this contract is exactly identical as it was in previous years, except we did add a 1.81 increase in the rental amount. So everything is the same except for the CPI rental increase that we put. Carl's been working with CISA on this, and they're in agreement, so it's just a matter of the board approving this and us moving forward.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Hackett. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Feld. Any discussion?
Mr. Ron, I know the lease agreement is basically the same. Have you had any discussion with the CISA people about purchasing this property lately?
They do not want to purchase. That is not in their business model anymore with CISA 5. They're not interested in buying anything.
Okay. Thank you.
Other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
Steve, before we get to the consent agenda, I found in our governance manual, the section related to board policy, creation and review in the governance process, and it says it's intended that the board policies be living documents. Toward this end, its ends policies shall be reviewed annually. And then all other policies shall be reviewed whenever their use indicates the need.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
With that, I'll move to the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
One thing, if we could pull the CEC student handbook from this, because we have to do a little bit more work on that in order to get it up to speed.
Okay, so striking item 6E.
Correct.
Yes, as long as you brought that up, Ron, I was going to also bring it up. I thought we had sort of decided that prior to us adopting that it needed to go through the CEC board. And I saw in reading through their handbook, there were a lot of changes yet to either be made or suggested changes that were in red. I'm not sure where are they with that handbook at this point in time?
So Pat, before it came to this board, to the committee meeting, those changes had been approved by the CEC Governance Council, is my understanding. However, at the committee meeting, the suggestion or the request really was made to include the district mission and vision along with the chain of command document. And adding those into the CEC handbook, we thought should go back to the CEC Governance Council for approval, because that's more of a dramatic change than a minor change of a name or citation or a semicolon or spelling or something along those lines. So that's why we're asking that the CEC handbook be pulled at this point in time. Those are more substantial changes that should go back to their Governance Council.
So all of those changes that were online, that were in red, crossed out lines here, there, and everywhere, have already been adopted.
That is my understanding, yes.
That's what Kerry said at the last meeting.
Okay.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the agenda with the 6E stricken?
So moved.
Second,
Motion by Mr. Feld, second by Betty Mannion. Roll call?
Steve Hendrick,
Aye.
Mannion,
yes.
Pat Fair,
Aye.
Mark Polbinski,
Yes.
Sandy Robinson,
Yes.
Dale Bell,
Yes.
Steve Johnson.
Yes. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you, everyone. Stay warm to the degree it's possible in this weather.